they really didn't understand what the word graffiti meant.
They didn't. The studio executives generally are not the most sophisticated people in the world. And you will find that if you go to Hollywood. I hope you don't, because you don't want to be oppressed by people who are not as smart as you are. And I'm dumb. And obviously...
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
So you'd have to have been under a rock not to know that George Lucas did his first Comic-Con panel in Hall H. It was the big moment for Comic-Con, and really it was the only Star Wars connection at Comic-Con this year. I think they're going to save everything for D23. But George talked a lot about storytelling and mythology and art, and the panel, which was also Guillermo del Toro was on it, and Doug Chiang, the design director at Lucasfilm, he was in on it. It's about the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art that is opening in LA in 2026. And it was very interesting to me because when you hear these guys talk about what they do and what they did, it's very different from what you hear Kathleen Kennedy and the current leadership at Lucasfilm, at least out of her mouth, I feel that filmmaking is about. I was pleasantly surprised how opposite Guillermo del Toro is from the usual idiots at Lucasfilm like Kathleen and others. Pablo Hidalgo and everything. You have to understand, they talked about recycling franchises. George's idea was always to tell the story. Tell a story. Keep the story moving forward, right? And Bob Iger was like, well, let's just do a soft reboot and make everything our own. And it didn't work. That alone didn't work because people already knew the story. And it was so lazily done. I mean, I'm going to say J.J. Abrams has the IQ of a rabbit, okay? And, you know, Larry Kasdan's tired. The Force Awakens, I don't care how much money it made, it was terrible. It didn't make the money because it was a good movie. It made the money because Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill were supposed to be in it together, and they weren't. We get 20 seconds of Luke Skywalker at the end, and what they did to Han and Leia is pure, postmodern, fourth-wave feminist bullshit, right? And it didn't move the story forward. George gave them script treatments, and instead of following what they did, what he wanted, they thought it was too deep in the lore, so they just went for a soft reboot. And, you know, what we got was terrible, lazy filmmaking and propaganda. And what that did is divided everybody. Disney has realized it. They realized the mistake they made. You know, art in George's mind is supposed to evoke an emotions in a person. And instead we got, and the emotions we got from the sequels was anger. And I don't think that's what George thinks art should do, right? But let's talk more. It's the storytelling. And if you look at the history of the world and mythology, you'll notice patterns in different cultures. Like, for instance, every ancient culture has a story of a great flood. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the story of Noah, etc. Those are uniting factors, and they are recognized by cultures all over the world, right? This is the thing that the sequel trilogy missed. Not only did they not push the story forward, they missed the uniting factors and the mythology of what George had built, because they, A, wanted a soft reboot, according to Bob Iger, wouldn't go into the lore, and C, they wanted to propagandize people. Pablo Hidalgo said so. So let's talk more about it, because there's a lot to this.
The Force, nobody understood the Force. Nobody, what they do is, and then they started other ones when I sold the company, and they, a lot of those ideas that were in there sort of got lost. But that's the way it is.
These are my kids. So
All those Star Wars films.
all the Star Wars films.
They were your kids.
Yeah, well, they are my, I loved them, I created them. I'm very intimately involved in them, and obviously to
And
sell
you
them
sold
off.
them.
I sold them to the white slavers that take these things and
Okay, but having said all that, and having talked to you for the
Protect these characters, make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them, and that the universe of Star Wars continues to grow.
So Doug Chang is the senior vice president and design director at Lucasfilm, and he was one of the guys that George hired to help create the galaxy before the rebellion. Ozzy Osbourne, who was a huge Star Wars fan, had been invited to the Phantom Menace premiere, and he wondered out loud why the ships look so different. And the reason why is because George wanted to create an era in that galaxy. That the Republic was beautiful, sleek designs, and the Empire was very industrial and very kind of gritty and lived in. And that's the reason why. But Doug had a lot of really good stuff to say. But I want to talk more about Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro talked about, again, what George, not just how art causes an emotion in people, but the fact it doesn't belong to any of us. You can collect as much art as you want. It's got to go somewhere when you go. And you might as well, if you're somebody with the money of these guys, put it somewhere where everybody can enjoy it. And, unlike a couple of people I know, and they didn't sell it piece by piece. They're putting the stuff that they've collected from Norman Rockwell prints to Frida Kahlo and other, first edition comic books in a place for everybody to come and enjoy it. At the museum, the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. And that is something to think about, because filmmaking is every art genre you can think of. It's painting, it's acting, it's performance art, it's sculpture building, it's composing, it's storytelling, right? And that's filmmaking. That's what this is actually kind of, in my opinion, kind of piecing together as a storytelling. But let's hear what Guillermo has to say here.
But it's also celebrating an emotional thing that belongs to all of us. Myth belongs to all of us. Propaganda is
So
controlled by
let's
a
talk
very small
about
group.
mythology.
And
Mythology,
myth unites
according to
us,
George
propaganda
and Guillermo
divides
del
us.
Toro,
So
good
if
stories
these
unite people. And the one thing about this franchise, Star Wars, is that it united people. Everybody loved it. Even my dad, the first time he saw it, loved it. And he was a Captain Kirk fan, right? But he thought this was good storytelling because it was bigger than just the science and logic. It touches the soul, because that's actually what it's about, right? The Force, Jedi versus Sith, good versus evil. And when you look at it, when you look at the films, there's something to it that we all recognize, that we all can be drawn to. And it worked because that's what it was. It was storytelling, it was mythology. Then we get into the sequel trilogy, which is propaganda. You get lazy storytelling by J.J. Abrams and Larry Kasdan, who was too tired to be working on it. You get the fact that they wanted to do a soft reboot. So again, it's just recycling the same story, which is not how you do this. You know, I don't mind franchises going on if they continue the story. But instead, they just rehashed it. And cynically, on Disney's part, because they wanted to make it their own. And like Guillermo del Toro said, art doesn't belong to the person who holds it. And if, Bob Iger understood that, he would have understood that what they created was garbage. And it's not art, it's propaganda. When you look at what Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi, he inserted woke avatars, Vice Admiral gender studies, ruined Leia, Rose Tico's Maoist speech. And The Last Jedi is terrible storytelling. I mean, why even go to Canto Bight? It didn't lead to anything. It didn't go anywhere, right? And, the rehash of Crate and the battle there being Hoth. That whole thing was so stupid that it can't even be quantified. Yet here we are watching this propaganda because that's all Rian Johnson knows how to do. He doesn't know how to write a good story. And he took a lot of his frustrations, I think, on out in the story about the fandom. He bullied Mark Hamill. He bullied the actor that played Admiral Akbar. And, that's not good storytelling, in my opinion. That's just propaganda. And again, The Force Awakens already was dividing people. Because not only could we say it was just a reboot of A New Hope, it was woke propaganda. I mean, Rey being the avatar for Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, it's not hard to think about storytelling and in franchise where you continue the story rather than recycle it. And that was one of the things that they talked about too. But Del Toro was very adamant about the difference between propaganda and storytelling, mythology. Mythology unites because it's a shared cultural thing, and propaganda divides. Propaganda is run by very few people. And you wonder, who thought it was a good idea to do what they did in The Last Jedi. And then you remember that it was filmed on one draft, and it caused major chaos in the fandom. And I think it was meant to. Again, Kathleen Kennedy thought she could raise up a new fan base by chasing us all off, and instead it crashed and burned around her. And she's one of those people that cannot admit to mistakes, because if she did, then she would fail. And as a woman, she's not allowed. In her mind, she can't fail. I mean, she thinks she's the first female studio head. Somewhere in Valhalla, Lucille Ball is shaking her finger at her, going, "No, you're not. We're all up here." Again, and that's another one of the problems. You can't tell the same story over and over again. You can't. People get sick of it. You can't. And if you're going to do it, don't do it half-assed. And that's what they did. And don't put propaganda in it. Now, I know Pablo Hidalgo will go, "Well, there's politics in Star Wars." Yeah, there is. It didn't drive the story. It wasn't in your face. Right? It wasn't in your face. And that's the problem with The Last Jedi. And, I can't imagine George Lucas allowing a bunch of pierced, tattooed, fat, blue-haired land whales telling him what he should put in his story. But, Raylo, that was such a phenomenon and such a horrible idea, and Kennedy fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Because, Twilight was so successful, why can't we have that in Star Wars? Because it's not Twilight. It's not Twilight. I mean, I'm sure she has several copies of, nor was it 50 Shades of Grey, mommy porn, or Das Kapital, or, the Communist Manifesto. It's telling a story, and the story drives the movie forward, not propaganda. And what we got with the sequel trilogy was propaganda. That's it, pure propaganda. Lazy filmmaking, because I'm sure JJ is too stupid to understand what he did was woke propaganda. And of course, Rian Johnson had every intention of doing what he did. And Kennedy let it happen. And what we got is a failed attempt at continuing the story when it wasn't continuing the story. It was just a soft reboot, right? And I think this panel proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, how wrong Disney was to do what they did. Because they didn't want to listen to George. All right, and Kennedy lied right to his face. This is Steph, signing out. I'll see you around the galaxy.